I am Abdullah from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. My question is that if a Muslim dies in a plague, will he be called a martyr or will he just get the sawab of a martyr? There are various hadiths talking about this incident of a person dying in the plague. Abdullah Prophet Muhammad said, it's mentioned hadith of Tirmidhi, volume number 2, hadith number 1063, that the Prophet said, there are 5 types of martyrs in Islam. The one who is killed in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person who dies in the plague, a person who dies of stomach illness, a person who dies while drowning, and a person who dies in a crash or a collapse, maybe a house has collapsed. So these 5 categories of the people, according to the Prophet, they are martyrs. So if a person dies in plague, yes, he is called as a martyr. There is a hadith in Ibn Majah, volume number 4, hadith number 2804. The Prophet asks one of the Sahabas that, what do you know about the martyrs amongst you? So he said that those who are killed in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they are martyrs. Then the Prophet replied, if this was the only case, then martyrs in my ummah would be very few. Then he said, martyrs are those who are killed in the way of Allah. Martyrs are those who die in the cause of Allah. Martyrs are those who die because of stomach illness. Martyrs are those who die in a plague. And there's another addition by another narrator saying that martyrs are those who even die while drowning. So these are 5 categories of people who the Prophet said are martyrs. Regarding the question, if a person dies in a plague, is he called a martyr or will he get a sawab of a martyr? There's another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, which is mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, volume number 7, hadith number 5734, where the beloved Prophet ﷺ said, Hazrat Aisha, may Allah be pleased with her, said that the Prophet said that Allah sends plagues as a punishment to the unbelievers, to whomever He wants. And as for the believers, it is a blessing. And if a believer during plague lives patiently and believing that nothing will befall him except what Allah has ordained for him, Allah says he will get a reward of a martyr. In this hadith, a person who lives patiently is the criteria and believes that nothing will befall him, nothing will happen to him except what is ordained by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gets the sawab of a martyr. And according to Ibn Hajar, he says, rahimullah, that there are 3 categories of people in this. A person who dies in plague, he gets the sawab of plague. A person who is affected by plague but does not die, he too gets the sawab of a martyr. And a person who during plague is patient and has faith that nothing will befall him, and he does not get sick, he does not die, yet he gets the sawab of a martyr. But a person who dies in plague, besides being called a martyr, he also gets a sawab of a martyr, he gets both ajr. Hope that answers the question. There's a question posed on the Facebook by Abdur Rahman. Assalamu alaikum, brother. Suppose a Muslim doctor dies while treating a COVID-19 patient, does he get the reward of a martyr? And I quoted the hadith earlier in my first session as well as the second session that our beloved Prophet Muhammad said. It's a hadith of Sahih Bukhari, volume number 7, hadith number 5734, that a plague is sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a punishment to the believers, to the unbelievers, to whoever He wants. But as for the believers, the plague is a blessing. And if a believer with sincere faith, if he stays in the place where plague is there and he believes that nothing will befall him except what Allah has ordained for him, then he will get the sawab of a martyr. And Ibn Hajar has said this, there are 3 categories of people here, that if a person who dies in the plague, he yet gets the sawab. If a person gets infected by plague but does not die, yet he gets the sawab of a martyr. And if a person doesn't get infected yet he believes and has faith in Allah, yet he gets a sawab of a martyr. If he dies in another hadith, he is called as a martyr. But let me differentiate between a plague and COVID-19, coronavirus disease 2019. Plague is an epidemic. So for plague, you get the sawab of a martyr. But for every epidemic, you will not get the sawab of a martyr. A plague is an epidemic due to bacteria. It is bacterial. COVID-19 is viral. It's an epidemic, but it's not bacterial. And plus there is another hadith of the Prophet Muhammad that where the Prophet said that the plague will never enter Medina. And another hadith says that the plague and the Dajjal will not enter Makkah. So the plague cannot enter Medina, cannot enter Makkah. And we know today that the government is taking precaution in Makkah, Medina. So why should they take precaution of COVID-19? Do you think hadith? No, hadith is sahih. But COVID-19 is not a plague. So COVID-19 is an epidemic, but not a plague. So the hadith says, if you die of plague, you are a martyr. If you die in a place where plague is there, even if you don't die, as long as you have sincere faith, you have faith in Allah, nothing will happen except what Allah wills, then you get the sawab of a martyr, irrespective if you die or you don't die. But COVID-19 is not a plague, so please do not mistake in yourself that every epidemic is a plague. So if a patient dies of COVID-19 or a doctor dies while treating the patient, because he's treating a patient, he's trying to save a human life. Allah says in the Quran, in Surah Maida, chapter number 5, verse number 32, if you save one human being, it's as though you have saved the whole of humanity. So he'll get the reward for saving a human being or saving the whole of humanity. But he will not be called as a martyr. He will not get the sawab of a martyr. Hope that answers the question.